Here we are 1 month later since the 1-year anniversary of Dying Light 2. In 2023 so far, Dying Light 2 is off to a very good start, launching with their biggest update yet, Community Update number 2. Alongside that new content, we also got the Bloody Anniversary event, where the community global goal was to chop off 60 million limbs. And guess what? The community got 2 times that, you psychopaths. The Bloody Anniversary event was a massive success for Techland. The reward itself were completely worth hopping onto the game and completing your personal goal. If you did so, you got the Rise outfit, that lovable piece of filth from Dying Light 1. This event right here, the success behind this event is what happens when Dying Light 2 receives 3 different things. 1, a massive update that the community has been desiring to go ahead and add in significant endgame content. Number 2, worthwhile rewards. And number 3, a correctly estimated goal. Techland has learned from the failures of previous events in 2022, and this one really shined through. This event came alongside the Legend Levels update, which added a lot of content, so it prompted players to hop on the game. They were interested, and once online, they saw that the rewards were worthwhile. There was outfits, masks, weapons. Let's go and get it. Next thing you know, the community's working together. Bam! 10 million, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Holy shit, 110, 120, and 130. My god, that's a lot of blood. But it doesn't end there. 1 week into February, we got the Dropkick event, where the participation reward was a hunter token. But the warm-up goal, you get a wrench, and it's not just any wrench, it's actually Brecken's wrench. Remember Brecken from the original Dying Light, that goddamn parkour instructor? Well, he's back, and he's here, sort of. And if you got 200 drop kicks, you completed your personal reward, you got the Brecken outfit. And if you also play the original Dying Light at least once, you now have the complete trio in your drip collection. But here's the thing, I gotta be honest, my ultimate favorite, that Night Hunter mask. Awarded to players for their global goal of 15 million kills, and the community blew past those drop kicks in like 3 days. I'm so happy to see that the community was able to go and work together for both events. This mask, so cursed, I absolutely love it. I kind of love this new era of Techland. They have really learned from their experimental first phase, because honestly, that's what I'm going to consider the entirety of 2022. 2022 was their year to test out different things, see what works, see what doesn't work, and by now I feel like Techland should have an exact idea on what we are looking for with Dying Light 2. How they handle their anniversary update, interviews, interactions with the community so far in 2023, it's quite exciting. The second year, oh, I gotta sneeze. The second year so far is giving me hope, and if I have to offer one piece of advice to Techland, please keep it up, especially with these events. One thing that I believe contributes to the success of them is tying certain rewards as event exclusive. I personally think it's one of their best decisions, as it heavily promotes and incentivizes the players to participate. So continue that, please. Both my friends and I had to set time aside to go on to Dying Light 2, participate in the event, and get our reward. We weren't doing that when we were getting long nights, or my favorite, the avocado charm. I'm gonna go walk on the oncoming traffic if I see those 2 returning. But now I have one big question to ask. Can Techland keep this momentum up in 2023? Honestly, I really hope and think they can, but let's also not forget, Techland's got some competition coming their way in 2023. That's right, Dead Island 2 is on the way, and people are head over heels for that, and it's releasing in a couple of weeks. It's also going to be very interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. Is Dead Island 2 going to launch in a good state, a bad state where it's riddled with bugs, glitches, T-posting Keanu Reeves? Am I going to go and cry myself to sleep once again because of this? We'll have to wait and see. Dying Light 2 is taking a couple months off to focus on major core issues, but more on that later. I do want to go ahead and talk some updates to you. So around the release of the Dropkick event, Techland actually went ahead and did a hotfix patch. You know what that means? New Dying Light 2 secret massive update is here, and with this update, big health bars now exist, which okay, but I thought size didn't matter. I'm not entirely sure about the decision behind that one, but normally I wouldn't even cover hotfixes on the channel. But if you haven't noticed, we're slowly overhauling content, and we've been doing that for the past 2 or 3 months by now. But when it came to this hotfix, it's actually a pretty significant update. They of course had their typical bug improvements, glitch and performance fixes, but there are 2 worthy changes in here worth mentioning. They added the ability to reset legend levels once per save for players who have achieved at least level 50. So if you want to go in and reset your rank for whatever reason you choose, you can now do so. This was most likely done in response to the group of players who loaded up on the anniversary event on day 1 and hit max rank immediately. It's like waking up on Christmas eager to unbox your new zombie game. You unbox it and you get the day before. You've been so excited, waiting for so long to finally have something to play, and there's no substance there. You can't enjoy it. But now with the new update, those players can now go ahead, reset themselves if they choose, or you could sneak over to your friend's house, get his controller, and reset him. The ability to reset was honestly the best way to tackle this issue. It would have been a complete gamble if Techland tried to investigate, find those players who hit max rank on day 1 and reset them. Because honestly, I feel like if they tried to push a big fix in typical Techland fashion, some unaffected players might have been reset. So going ahead and just giving the players the option to manually reset themselves is easily the best and safest option that I'm glad Techland went for. But alongside this update, Techland also increased the player stash inventory, going from 50 weapon item slots to 250. That's major. That is a request that we have been asking for so long since release. We wanted expanded spaces to ensure that we can keep our favorite weapons intact. Bravo Techland, this is a great major quality of life improvement. Thumbs up to you. Now, while a majority of the community is very much satisfied with the updates that Techland has been doing so far, there is one small problem going on in the background. When I do these monthly reviews, I try to take a lot of ongoing issues, bundle them all up together so everybody feels heard, which leads me to one particular group in the community that has kind of died off since release, and that's the speedrunning community. So this is where gamers can band together to complete the game in the quickest time possible, using little tips and tricks to go ahead and get yourself a record time. Speedrunning, it's massive. It has a huge following. Gaming events are held around the world embracing this. Developers hop onto shows to watch how speedrunners complete their games in record time. Instantly. It's a community that loves what they do. It's a community that developers love actively engaging themselves in. Dying Light 1 speedruns were some of the most talked about, especially those in the following. Completing it in 7 minutes or less. I would love to finish in that time. Dying Light 1 had a major following for speedrunning. It's how some of your favorite creators found their footing in this community.
Stop humping my face, bozo.
But why now, nearly a year later, speedrunning in Dying Light 2 is just non-existent? That's because Techland has kinda killed this community in their game. There are numerous instances, specifics, gameplay movements, and tricks that would only benefit speedrunners and no one else, and it would constantly be patched out of the game. It was almost like Techland was watching all of these speedrunners complete their run and they turned back to their work to patch it out and make sure it never happens again. Which I do understand to a certain point. You don't want your players to go ahead and abuse your game. I get that. But the thing is, this went on for months since release. Speedrunners were constantly finding new and exciting ways to shave off time from their records. Then a week later, Techland just patches it right out. It's gotten so bad to the point where the speedrunning community has just given up entirely on this game. That's why you don't see any speedrunning going on, because Techland has simply just killed all interest with it. So now you're probably asking, what exactly does the speedrunning community want? They aren't asking for the game to be changed and completely overhauled for them. One thing that they're very passionate about and would reignite that community is to allow for a down patch back to 1.0.6. This is the most optimal version of the game that would allow them to speedrun, be able to focus on their times, and showcase their effort. It's just a little tiny Steam setting that Techland needs to enable to allow players to revert back to that. This way, speedrunners can easily access their version without affecting the current state of the game. That's all they really want. But now I want to go ahead and start shifting the topics to DLC 2. because this has me really excited for the future of Dying Light 2. Now, during the developer livestream, we had concept arts appearing, particularly these two right here. This one is an overgrown swamp looking like it's completely captured a city and drowned it out. It looks quite eerie, empty. A lonely road lays ahead for Aiden Caldwell. And as this DLC is intended to take place after the main events of the game, after the events of Mia, Aiden is back to his pilgrim path. And something like this that we're seeing right here is exactly what I want our main protagonist to go through. We then have another screenshot, a very dark, gloomy area. It's giving me a sense of grittiness, that feeling that so many of us desired from that E3 showcase. Is Techland using this DLC to head back to the roots and give the community what they want? Honestly, I very much believe so. In an interview with Timon, he confirmed that it's going to be a narrative open world and focus on the infected and combat with them. He did also mention that Bloody Ties was an experiment. It was their take on the arena format. But when it comes to DLC 2, it's going to be more traditional. It's going to include a new region and definitely be taking community requests and feedback to help shape exactly what this is. But before they go and showcase it, they want to update the core systems first, and they want to have this slow build up to the DLC to make it even more satisfying and fulfilling. That sounds familiar. Techland's in that operation room desperately putting band-aids when they need to go back and fix the core issues first, changing the core system and reworking certain aspects of the game before making new content. But more on that later, I pinky promise. Because there was actually a third image right here. It went unnoticed for quite some time. For some reason, this concept art screenshot, it just kind of gives me Dark Souls and Bloodborne vibes. It's hard to make out exactly what this picture entails, but we have our character here, presumably Aiden, holding an axe walking into what I think is a graveyard. We have the church in the background or some kind of cathedral and a watchtower overlooking the entire area. And just like the other two screenshots, this place looks haunting and menacing. In my opinion, more compelling and horrifying than anything we've gotten in the base game of Dying Light 2. And just based off of the concept arts here, I think they really want to bring Dying Light 2 to that more grounded feeling. They want to bring in that horror that you would expect from a zombie survival game like this. And looks like now they're really committed to aiming for that Dark Ages vibe with the setting and story centered around the infected. But we can actually go and dig deeper into this DLC because there was a lot of data mine information about it. You may remember from a couple months ago, we believed this DLC was going to be called Blood Diamonds, focused on divers, crystals, and underwater combat. The leaked dialogue for that DLC hinted at a story focused on humans. But now, Blood Diamonds has been renamed to New Frontier, which could mean two different things. Blood Diamonds was never expected to be the second DLC, and what the community found was just leftover cut content. Or number two, which I'm kind of leaning more towards, is that Blood Diamonds was scrapped entirely because of community feedback to it. I hope it's that one. It would kind of fit the Techland redemption arc that they're going for in 2023. I mean, ever since the anniversary update, it just brought the community back together and basically re-sparked interest into this game completely. So Techland changing up their DLC to be an infected-centered story that takes place after the events of the main game in response to community feedback would not be so far-fetched. One of the biggest complaints about Bloody Ties was that it completely ignores the main game. You play as Aiden for so long, he's so hell-bent on trying to find and rescue his sister Mia. It's his goal, it's his mission. But then some random dude tells you to go to an abandoned pool. Next thing you know, you're murdering people for sheer enjoyment. It didn't really make sense and went completely against the character of Aiden. With DLC 2, it's confirmed to take place after the epilogue, which also brings up an interesting question. What ending are they going for? As we know, there are so many different endings, one with Lawan, one with Hakon, one where Aiden is alone. And for me, just my guess, but you can go down below in the comments and tell me what you think, but I think they will most likely go with the one where Aiden is alone, by himself, to continue his story of being a pilgrim that travels around the world. The developer livestream did say Aiden's pilgrimage would be expanded on. And honestly, I also think Rosario Dawson is very expensive. I don't think there's any shot they're getting her back for that happily ever after. And with the concept arts that we're seeing, I feel like Aiden having a sidekick that he could rely on would go slightly against the identity that they're trying to establish, but I could be very, very wrong here. This is one of the downsides of writing a story with choices instant consequences, because now you need to go and decide which ending is canon. Timon also hinted that new methods of weapons would be coming, and I hate to break it to you, but he's talking about guns. There's no way he isn't, and I have the proof to back it up here, because also data mined in the files were two items called Frontier Pistol and Frontier Shotgun. These files were added into Dying Light 2 after the major update, and modders, thank you Colty, were able to successfully get their hands on it and play around with the weapon animations. You can see it for yourself right here. Now obviously, I don't want to confirm it could be absolutely nothing, but everything is pointing in the direction of guns confirmed. And from the looks of it, it seems this story is going to take place outside of Villador, and because of that, guns could easily reappear. Inside of Villador, we know that all the guns were confiscated. The story element and lore doesn't disregard guns appearing outside of the walls, and that's exactly what could be occurring here. But we can't also forget the hidden potential of that secret gun stash that could be somewhere in the city. But I don't think they're going to be going down that route here, at least not yet. And one last thing to mention before we further discuss the roadmap is that there were hints of characters from the original Dying Light to return. Some notable ones are Crane, Brecken, Spike, Toga, and Fatim. But let's also not forget that one of the developers literally had a folder saying Crane is alive on his desktop. And repeatedly ever since this update, Techland has kind of been hinting towards his return, so I wouldn't be surprised if it actually does happen. If he does come back, I hope it's not for cheap fan service trying to score some brownie points with everybody. I would want a really compelling story to be built with his involvement, not just have him tacked on. It could also be the perfect way to introduce Sentinel volatiles. Keep that in mind, Techland. But now, let's go ahead and start talking about that roadmap, because there is a lot I want to say about it. We know that Techland is upgrading the gore, adding a proper transmog system, changing the nighttime experience, and also fixing the parkour flow. So what new information do we have regarding these requests? Here's what we got over the past few weeks. The strategy is simple: improve, update, and tweak the core elements of the game so that they're more in line with community expectations. This year's focus is on our players' voices, so it's very important to us that they stay active and loud. Specifically when it comes to the nighttime, Techland knows it overlooked its importance. Timon stated that in the first game, it was so scary that a majority of players just skipped it entirely. So going into the second game, Techland wanted to go ahead and make it more accessible, and that's how they developed it. But because of that, things got carried away and it lost a little bit of its identity and feel, that feeling that made it so special in the first place. And nighttime in Dying Light 1, I recently went over this in a previous video, but they're so haunting and terrifying. Dying Light 2 nighttime just doesn't hit the same as Dying Light 1. The horror just isn't there as it once was, and it's a little bit unsatisfying. Unless you're Game Rant, then you think it's the best thing ever. We want the players to be more scared and terrified than they feel right now when playing the night experience. We want to give them the ability to play with the night systems even more and feel more in control of those systems. To make the nighttime more scarier, Techland plans to change the atmosphere, offer literal darker nights, and have roaming volatiles make a return. What players can expect is the ability to dive deep into the streets of the infected, but still be able to walk and sneak through if they're agile enough. They want volatiles to be lurking at every corner. They want to also increase motivation to go down into the street level as well. They're going to be offering and introducing new sources of loot and possibly more activities in order to achieve that. And then when it comes to parkour changes, it also shares some similarities to the nighttime. Parkour in Dying Light 2 was deemed a little bit too accessible, so they're going to be reverting back. They want to give players a more grounded and realistic approach that they're used to from playing the first game. Because honestly, players who go back to the first game will realize that it's a little bit more difficult to get into after playing the sequel. Timon also mentioned the fluidity of movement and how momentum is, and in simpler terms, my terms, it's lacking. Seamless movement through geometry just isn't as satisfying as it should be, so Techland is going to be responding by making a lot of subtle animation changes and changes to their algorithm to ensure that the new system works logically. And honestly, with all of that grouped up together, 2023 is looking to be a really great year for Dying Light 2. Just the amount of changes that they made in the past 2 to 3 months already is quite impressive. Community support behind this game and developers was not like this in 2022. I honestly thought this game was on its deathbed in December, but with more recent updates, everyone is definitely more satisfied with the current state of the game. But we still need to keep actively doing our part and staying vocal about certain issues. And friends, that concludes this video. So I'm going to be a little bit honest. I'm recording this on February 14th because I'm going on vacation for like 2 to 3 weeks. So by the time this gets uploaded, if certain things were added in or changed, it may not be included in this video. I'll try my best to do so, but I'm going to be in Switzerland. I'm going to be ice climbing and also paragliding my way around. So yeah, I thought I would go ahead and let you know. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and bang my wife. See you later.